Hello friends, in this video we're going to create a small little project, this budget calculator, show the difference between switch statements and if statements. So let's just take a look. If we click on monthly savings, for example, see this animation pops out, and this is on what we're going to concentrate this project on. So we're going to loop through each of them and assign them a event listener of click, and when this click happens, then this animation will pop out. Okay, so this is all that this project does. We're also going to create HTML and CSS for it, so we're going to create this from scratch as usual. Okay, so hope you're excited, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's get started by creating a new folder. I'm just going to call this budget calculator, and open it up with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let's just create a index.html file, a style.css, and a app.js. Okay, so I'm going to use vanilla JavaScript to create this, so there's no fancy React or something like that happening here. So let's get into our HTML. Let's create a boilerplate. Let's give this a title of budget calculator. And let's start linking up our style sheet. I'm going to use not style, link. So delete this link and link up our style sheet, style.css. Okay, down here in the body, I'm going to also link up our app.js, so script. And we're going to choose the source of app.js. Let's just open this up using live server. And there we go. So I'm going to make this larger and jump through them. Okay, let's go down here. So we have our style linked up. Let's first of all give this a title. So create up here in H1. And let's call this, actually it's the same as the title here, budget calculator. I'm just going to copy this in here. And I'm not going to type off all of the HTML because it's pretty long. But I'm going to type out one section of it. So if we take a look in our older example, not the older, but this one right here. So this monthly savings, monthly expenses, annual expenses, income, and budget review, these are basically all sections. So we're going to just create a section, and I'm going to give this, first of all, a ID. So as I said, each section will have its own ID. This will be monthly savings. And within each of our sections, we're going to have a H2, so this title right here, of monthly savings. But I'm going to wrap this H2 into an anchor tag, first of all. And I'm also going to delete this href. Okay, so it won't take us anywhere. It will just be a link tag. So let's create within this an H2, and I'm going to give this a class of dropdown. Because we're going to grab onto this class of dropdown in our JavaScript and loop through each dropdown. Okay, and within the title, we're just going to type in monthly savings. It's exactly like the ID up here, but without that dash in there. And for this icon right here, I'm going to use actually HTML icon. So we're not going to grab on from font style to an icon. We're just going to use here a ampersand, then a hash, then 10162. And actually, this is just a code for it. And I also have to have it right after our title right here. Okay, and you have to finish it up with a semicolon. And now if we take a look in our HTML, actually right here, you see we have this, whoa, not this one. We have this, this icon right here. Okay, so let's go back into our HTML. Now, after the title, I'm going to create a header tag. You can actually also just create div tags, but I want to have a bit of a difference within them, so I know each one what it is, what it represents. I'm going to give this a class of form group. Okay, and now within the header, I'm going to have a span and a output. So we're going to have a span, first of all, with a class of input group text, input dash group dash text, and within here we're just going to type in total, and I'm going to use this sum sign. It's the Greek sign for, I believe this is C or lambda. Now whatever, we're going to use this sign. You can go to Google and just type in Greek signs and we get this sign. Okay, now let's go further down here. Let's go to output and give this a ID. And we're actually not going to use this ID right now because this is part of a greater project that I'm working on right now in my JavaScript course. So monthly savings, monthly dash savings, dot caps lock, man, I can't type today, and output. And I'm missing a T there. Okay, so this is actually where a output should go, but we're not going to use this. But we do need it for the header. So we do need it for this part right here. Okay. Now let's go back into our code. And now create a div tag with a class of form group again. So just going to type in dot. This is how you can assign automatically using emit a class to a div tag. So this will be a class of form group again. And within this, we're going to have a label again. Actually, not again, but our first label. And we don't need this for, but we do need to give the label a class of control label. And within here, we're going to type in emergency funds. Okay, so emergency funds. So let me just explain this really quickly. Each of these small portions will form emergency funds, investments, retirement. These are all in a form group. So these are all contained in a small container, which is then defined by a form group. So let's go back in here. So in our form group, we have the label, which was this one. And now we need to create this part right here. So let's go back in here and create another div tag with a class of form group. Okay, and within this form group, we're going to create a span tag again with the class span tag and then dot, which means that I'm going to assign it a class of input group and text. Okay, so we have our span tag, and within here, I'm just going to type in a $sign. Now after that, we need our input tag. So I'm going to create an input tag, and this will be the type of number. So we can only type in numbers in here. And I'm also going to give this a ID of emergency funds. So exactly as the title up here, you can just copy this, type it in here, and delete the space. And now I'm going to also use a placeholder of 0.00. So let's see what we got. Going back here. Okay, so we have this part right here. Now I am going to style this without typing in the rest of the HTML, and then just put in the rest of the HTML, and it would automatically take the next style. But we do need the next input tag, so let me also create this. No, actually, let me style it first. So let's go into our CSS, and I also am going to use a font from Font Awesome here. So let's just go to Font Awesome. And let's see, actually Google Fonts, oh my god, what am I doing? Okay, so there we have it, Google Fonts. And if you did notice, Google Fonts changed a bit. So we're going to use this Roboto. So let's click on Roboto Fonts. And I think I used that 400 or 500. I think it was 400. The normal, not the italic, the normal one. So let's go on select this style and then embed it. And up here, I'm going to click on import and copy this part right here. So I hope you can see this because this is a bit zoomed out. So this part right here, not the style tags, only the @import. And now we're going to go in our style sheet again and copy it in here, okay? And now I'm going to make just a basic reset. So star, then before, and comma after. And I'm going to set all my margins to 0 and my paddings to 0. Okay, and I'm also going to assign box sizing as border box. So margin 0 and padding 0 will take up all of the margins and paddings. We will take a look in our style sheet right here, and actually let me just put them up so we can see it. So if I would comment this portion out, we'll see we'll have margins and paddings left and right. So there are automatically assigned margins and paddings within the browser, and this is the way we can take them out so we don't have any conflicts within our design. Okay, so let's go back into our style sheet, and you know what, I'm going to also create a root folder, although we don't use those that often. But now I'm not going to use variables. I'm going to just use the regular colors. Okay, so let's go with body, font family. And actually the font family is from Font Awesome. So if you go back to Font Awesome, this is the font family that you should use. So font family, Roboto, sans serif. Okay, so if you just take it, copy it in here, and now take a look in our HTML again, you see the font family just changed to Roboto. Okay, so let me also center this to the center of the page. So I'm just going to take the body and give it a width of, let's say, 500 pixels, and then margin top and bottom 0 and left and right auto. Okay, so if we go back now in here, this is kind of centered in the page. Well, we're going to take care of this a little bit later on. Okay, I also want to change the background color of our body. Let's say background color to #FFF. And now let's take the H1 to the title. Let's type in text align center. And let's also increase the font size to 6 rem. And I think I can now, let me just leave it, because I'm zoomed in at like 300%. I could go back here, but I don't think you can see anything. So I am going to leave it a bit zoomed in for now. Okay, now let's go down here and let's change also the margin from the top to 3 rem, and this top and bottom, and left and right 0. Okay, so we'll have now a bit of a margin between these two. So if we take a look in inspect and we go on elements, let's click on this selector and let's take a look in our H1. You can see it has now a margin down here, so let's just hover over it. This, the orange part right there, is 3 rem or 48 pixels. Okay, let's go back into our Visual Studio Code, and now let's also change. I want to change the color of this to what color did I use? A hash of 2, AA, 1, 9, and 8. Let's see, was this the color? Yep, this is it. Okay. Now let's go back into our CSS, and let's also increase the H1's letter spacing to, let's say, 2 pixels. I think this is looking at now much better. Okay, now let's take care of our sections. As I said, we're going to have more than one section. This is the very first section. I'm going to style all of them, because if we select the section tag right now, it's going to style each of the section tag that we have, and we will also create. So now I can take out from the body this width of 500, which will push this back, and also the padding and the margins, because I'm going to assign it to the sections. Okay, so margin 0, and this I'm going to take out, and actually I'm going to cut it completely out and paste it in here. And comment it back in. And I'm going to increase this now to 550. And I'm going to display each section as flex. Okay, and flex normally flexes in a row direction. So I'm going to change the flex direction to column, because I want to have everything in a column. Now let's take our form group class that we created. And each form group I'm also going to display as flex. Okay, so if you take a look right here again, you can see they are now flexing in a row, and it's exactly as I want to have them. But I want to make a few more changes. For example, now I can now start including the rest of them. So let's go back into our HTML, and staying within the section, we're now going to include the next section, so the next form group, and we could just copy this one, because this is going to be a new form group, and we only have to replace emergency fonts with investments. And also I'm going to replace the ID of the input now with investments. Okay, and the rest we can leave as it is. So if we take now a look in our site, actually let me close this one up. We don't need this one, and also don't need this one. So there's our next one. Okay, we just need one more, and then I hit save. Okay, let's hit save. Let's take a look at it again. Yeah, now it's changed the investments. Okay, so let's take the next one, because the last one that we need is another form group, and this will be retirements. So retirements. And also change the ID down here for the input. Okay, so now if we take a look in our web page again, we have our 3 groups right here, and now we can continue on styling it. So let's jump into our CSS and continue styling our groups. So I want to have everything aligned to the center. So align items center and also align content center. Okay, and I also want to justify the content with space between. Okay, so let's just take a look now in our web page, and this space between creates space between the elements right here, and it pushes it to the left and completely to the right. I think I could actually start zooming out of this a bit. Yeah, it's looking much better. Okay, now let's jump back into our code again, and let's change the background color to a hash of 264 F63. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, now we have the background color changed only for the form groups, but I also want to change it to the inputs later on. But let me first of all change the padding. So I'm going to go with 0.2 rem top and bottom and 0.5 rem left and right. So we're going to create just a bit of padding here and to the top and bottom to each of them. So remember, they are in a form group. Okay, next up we're going to give them a bit of a border radius. Of 3 pixels and a margin from the top, actually a margin from the bottom of 1 rem. Okay, and later on I'm going to display them by using a special class, or a class that we create and then assign it through JavaScript. So I am going to display this now as none. So if you have it displayed as none, it will disappear. We don't no longer see this. But for now, we're going to comment it out until we're finished with the styling. And then when we're going to go and grab onto this in JavaScript, I'm going to comment it back in. Okay, now I also want to have a hover effect. So when I hover over the form groups, I want the background color to change to which color do I select? Say hash of 46748B. Okay, so let's take a look at this. If we hover over them, they have a slightly lighter color. And of course, I also want to change my cursor to pointer. Okay, so that's actually all that we change. So only when we hover over the groups, the cursor changes to pointer. Now let's take care of the labels. And it's actually just a pretty short code. I'm going to select all of the label tags and increase their font size to 1.2 rem. And also the color, I'm going to change to hash FFF, so white color. Okay, that's it for the labels. Now let's continue on with the outputs. I'm going to give them a width of 150 pixels, a color of hash 111. So for the text color, and let's also change the font weight to 900 and the background color to a light color. So I'm going to go with this one. Actually, this should be FFF. Okay, next up, let's increase the font size to 1.2 rem and also the text align to the center. Actually, right. We don't want to have them in the right side. We want to have the left side. We want to have them in the right side of the output field then. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is change the inputs, and only when I focus on it, so input, and then using the focus pseudo class, we're going to change the background color to FFF, and we're going to have an outline of none and a border of none. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So when I click in here, I don't want to have a border or an outline. Okay, now let's go back into our styling. And I could now actually start copying in the rest of the sections. As I said, I'm not going to type in everything. This is just an example for the first section. I'm going to take the rest of the sections. And also let's put up here a comment of monthly savings, so we know exactly where everything starts. Okay, so this is the first section, and from the end of it to completely down to the JavaScript, we're just going to copy this in. You can see this is a lot of HTML. I didn't want to type this all out. This is just a huge time expense. So after this monthly savings, we will have again monthly expenses. Then it will have a section ID. And this is going to span to down here where the annual expenses start. And this is just going to basically have the same thing all over again. So a title wrapped in an anchor tag. It will have a symbol. It will have a header, which will just have then a output up here. After the header, we will have the form groups for food, clothing, shelter, and so far and so on. So if we hit then save, and don't worry, you will have everything for download. So we will have the entire code to download. And now let's take a look in our HTML again, and you can see we have everything in here. Now we still have a bit of styling to do. So let's go back into our CSS. And we close this up, and now I can actually snap it to right and left. Come on, there we go. We can now see everything. Okay, so I hope this is large enough for you. To see if it's not, please leave me a comment or text me. Okay, after our input, we have down here we have this button. Okay, so if you take a look in our HTML, right, where do we have it? There we go. In our budget review, we have this button tag, and we have the ID of budget review BTN, and also the class of BTN and BTN success. So I'm going to take the class of BTN, which is just a class for my button. So the class of BTN, I'm going to take off the margin bottom from it. Actually, give it a bit of a margin to the bottom of 1 rem. So I want to have down here a bit of a margin, bit of space, and now let's change this font size to 1.3 rem. So it has a bit of a large text size. Okay. Now I also want, when I activate this button, so when I click on it, to have an effect. So let's take the class of button again, and on active, we want to have a bit of a scaling transformation. So we're going to use transform and then scale. I'm going to go with 0.89% and 98. Okay, so when we click on it now, you can see it drops down just a tinge. If I would use 50% and hit save, take a look at what would happen. So it really shrinks down. We don't want this, we just want to have it just tinge of an effect. So 98 is excellent. Take a look. Okay, so this is what is happening. And also going to use a transition effect on this. It just won't happen instant of 0.1 seconds and ease in out. So if you click on it now, it has just a smoother transition, okay? Now we do have those classes of dropdown. So let's take the class of dropdown and let's change the color of them to a hash of 28AA. That's a 2 and type 3 2AA198. Okay, so this title's right here, and also the icon tag now changed to this color. You can take a look here. Everything changes to exactly the same color as our text up here. Now, this will have an effect, so when we will click on it, it will drop down this menu, or actually all of the form groups right here. So I do want it to have a cursor pointer. So I'll hover over it. The cursor turns into a pointer. And also a bit of a hover effect. So let's take the class again of dropdown. Okay, and when I hover over it, then I want the text to transform. So let's go with text transform. To underline. Okay, so when I hover it, what just happened? Drop down, text, decoration of underline. What did I type in text transform? Okay, so when I hover over the text now, it has just a bit of an underline effect. Not just a bit, but it has a completely underlined effect. And I'm also going to use the transition here of 0.1 seconds. Oh, I forgot to type in seconds up here. Okay, so you see it has just a bit of delay. Now I also want, when it's activated, so when I click on it, to have a color effect change. So I'm going to use the active again. I'm going to change the color to a hash of, let's just say, actually the same color that this is. So I'm going to use hash 46748B. Now let's take a look. So if I click on one of these labels, you can see the color changes. Okay, the last thing that we need is to create the animation effect for when this pops in. So the effect that I'm going to use, add keyframe in order to create an animation, and then I'm going to just call it scale up. And this is going to scale from 0% to 100%. Okay, now we're going to use the transform property again and the scale property again. And this is going to go from 0.1 to 1, so 100%. Now in order to have this effect, I'm going to create now a class of show. And this class of show will have all of the properties that the form group has. Okay, so I'm just going to copy all of the properties from up there, copy it into the show class. And in this case, I'm also going to give this a box shadow. So I'm going to give it, first of all, up here so you can see what is happening to the form group. So box shadow of 0, 0, 15 pixels, 5 pixels, and a RGBA of 0, 0, 0 and 0.2 for the alpha. Okay, so now we have this little bit of shadow effect. And now if I would call the animation up here, so within our form group, let's call animation, and now we need to call the name of the animation, so the name of the keyframe that we created down here. So let's go in here. So call the scale up. Not keyframe, we don't need you, and we don't need you. We just need you. So after animation, we call the name of the keyframe scale up. And we're going to give this a time of 0.2 seconds. And with the effect of easing out. Actually, just ease in. Okay, so each time I have this, I hit the save. You can see the animation taking effect on the reload actually. Now, we don't want to have this. Actually, I'm going to copy all of this again and copy it into our show class. And actually increase the border radius here to 5 pixels. Yeah, this is much better. Okay guys, so when this class of show will be active, then it's going to show me everything that the form has. So everything that the form group had, all of our settings all our styling settings that the form group had, and only on this click effect. Okay, so now I displayed all the form groups as none, so we hid all of them, and we want to activate this class of show. Okay, and I think we didn't finish style our button up here, so let me just take a look. Oh, that's odd. But nevertheless, let me style the button again. So the class of btn should have, strange. Well, whatever. So that class of btn success that we have, let's go into our button in our class again. So it also has this class of btn success. Let's give this a border radius of also 5 pixels, and then borders none. We take out the initial borders, but you can see it still has the 5 pixel border. Now also I'm going to take out the outline, so outline none, and this was this. See, it no longer has that outline that we had, so just comment it back in this outline right here, okay, on the click effect. Don't want this. And also going to change the background color to, let's say, green. Okay, now the color of the text to #FFF. And I'm going to take this class again, and when I activate it, so when I click on it, on active, I'm just going to change this green color to a green yellowish. Okay, so when I click on it, oh no, that's too much. Light green. There we go. Okay, that's a bit better. And also cursor pointer. So actually that's all the effects that I wanted. And the text needs a bit of a padding. So let's say padding, top and bottom. I only need top and bottom. Let's say 0.3 rem. Yeah, that's much better. Okay guys, so now let's go. Now it's time for the JavaScript part. Okay, so let's jump into our JavaScript file, and first we need to grab onto all of the sections. So we're going to create a few consts, a few variables using const keyword, and the first one I'm going to call dropdown 1, and now we're going to use document.querySelector all. Actually, just query selector. We don't want to select all of them, and we're going to go in here, and we're going to select from the ID of monthly savings. So let's just go into our HTML. So from this one, for our first section, and we're not going to select only this, but we're also going to select the class of dropdown. Okay, so from this ID, from this section, we're going to select this class. Now we're going to do this 4 more times. So I'm just going to copy this. And I think I have too much. So this is going to be 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because we have 5 sections. So monthly savings, monthly expenses, annual expenses, income, and budget review. Okay. And now we need to select from each of them the IDs. So here we will have monthly expenses instead of savings. And also let me open up in our console this. So let's check. Let's actually go back here. Then we have annual expenses. I'm going to copy this in here. And we had a dash for it. Then we have income. And after that we have budget review. Okay. And now let me check if it selected everything correctly. Now let's take a look in our console. And down here in our code, we're going to console log first of all the dropdown. So let's hit save. Yep, we have it selected. Then the dropdown 2. We should have this one selected now. Monthly expenses. Then dropdown 3. Null. Okay, so we made a mistake here. Let me take a look in our HTML. And go down to annual expenses. Annual expenses. Let's see what we did wrong here. Okay. Now it's selected. Let's see for the 4th dropdown. We have our income, and for the 5th one, we should have null again. Okay, so let's take a look down here. Budget review. Okay, I typed it in. So without the dash. So let's see. Yep, now it's correct. Okay, let's close up our console. And now I want to have a event listener of click, which will listen for this click when I click on something. And then it should open up. It should change to the text. Oops, I just closed that up. Okay, so it should change this form group to show. Actually, not that one, but this one, this drop down. So, as I said, for each of this, and when I say for each of this means that we need to use a loop. Now, we can't loop through this because they're individual elements. So let's say we will take this. We'll take each of this element and put them into an array. So let's create a Dropdowns array. Okay, and within this Dropdowns, we're going to include each of them as an item of an array. So let me just actually delete this. I'm going to copy this Dropdown. And there we go. And change this to 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so if I would move my console log down here, and we don't need this, hit save. And if I would console log Dropdowns now, also inspect this, open the console, we'll have a array. Okay, so we have each of them in our array. Each of them having also the class of Dropdown. Now, if we take a look down here, so you can see if I hover over one of them, then it means that these ones are selected. So let's take these Dropdowns and loop through them using a for each loop. So for each, so Dropdowns for each, and we don't need this. And I'm not going to use arrow function, we're going to use regular functions here. So going to use a callback function of function, and this is going to take in a drop. Okay, so the singular of dropdowns, I just like to use singulars. And we're going to take this drop and add an event listener. Capital L. So each time a click happens on one of those elements, then a function will be triggered which will check for a specific ID. So let's first of all try to console log something. Hello. Let's see if this works. So if I click on each of them, hello on this, hello again, hello, and hello. So this means that it works. Okay, so each time I click on one of them, hello is console logged. Now let's console log the actual element that we clicked on. So let's console log the drop, and not the string, but the drop itself. So let's click on one of them. Let's say we click on income. And you see income is now console logged, so it is selected. If we click on monthly expenses, this is selected, and so far and so on. Each one of them works. Okay, so let's clear out the console. Now I want to search for a specific ID. So if I would just type in drop.id, let's see what now happens. Well, nothing, because it doesn't see its ID, because the drop itself is, let me just show you. I actually need to use now target here. So drop target. Okay, it's undefined. But if I will go one level up, so I will use the parent of this. Now let's see what happens. So if I click on it, the anchor tag is now console logged. Now, if we take a look at our HTML, so we are now right here, and we still need to go a level up again to get this ID. So let's console log the parent of the parent for this. So I'm just going to copy this. Now let's see if I click on it, we get the entire section. Now I want to get the ID of this section. So now I'm going to use .id. And if I click on it again, I'm going to get the exact ID. Okay, so now we can say that if this drop element parent has the ID of of monthly expenses or monthly savings, we will grab on from the document by using query selector all, and we'll search for a ID of monthly savings again, and within this we're going to grab on to all of our form groups. Okay, and now we're going to loop through them. So let me just click on monthly savings. Now when this happens, we want to loop through all of our form groups. So I'm going to use a for each loop again, and now using another callback function, we are going to take the drop again and we're going to search for a class. So we're going to use class from the class list, the toggle, and we're going to toggle show. Okay, so now let's take a look at what will happen. So if I click on monthly savings, then the class of show is now added to it. And if I click on it again, then it disappears because it toggles this class off and on. Okay? Now all we need to do now is go through each of those elements. For each of our sections. So let's go back in here. Actually, don't need the console anymore. We just need to copy this if. Oops. And actually, I'm going to use the console bit because I can use the console from this. So click on monthly expenses. Replace the ID in both of them. So if drop element parent ID element, I'm going to select both of them. So now if I click on it, this also works. Let's clear our console. Here, click this. Now I need annual expenses. Actually, let me copy this if statement again. Click on annual expenses, copy the ID, and replace it in here. Now let's try it out. Okay, this is also working. Next up, I'm going to copy this again. Click on the income, copy the income ID, replace the annual expenses. Try it out. This is also working. And the last step, we'll need the budget. The budget review, click on it. Copy its ID and replace it here. Okay, so this should also work. Now we did this using if statements. We could also use else if, and this will also work. Okay, so let's try this out. I don't need the console anymore. And now we're going to go through this again, but this time using switch statements. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as it is and just going to comment it out. Actually, I should go from down here. So all of the if statements will remain as they are. I'm just going to comment them out. So from down here to up here, comment them out. So this is not working anymore. And now let's type in down here comment using switch. Now what I need to do is first of all create a const. And up here we had this in a console log and we were searching for this. So we were searching if this is equal to a ID. Now the same thing we're going to do down here with the switch statements. So we're going to create a const. We're going to name this drop ID. We're going to assign it to the drop parent IDs element. And as you know, switch has cases. So first of all, we're going to start by declaring this as switch. And we're going to switch through this drop ID. Okay, and for the case of monthly savings, for example, so let me open up the console right now again. So for the case of monthly savings, we're going to grab into the document, dot query selector all again. Need to use here double quotes. So we're going to actually do exactly the same thing that we did up here. So I could just copy this and paste it in here. but we need the monthly savings ID. Okay, so theoretically this should still work. So when this value in this case sees that this is a monthly saving, then document query selector it will look for if in an ID it will grab onto all of the form groups and then loop through each of them and switch the class to show. Okay, so as you can see, this is still working. And down here we just need to create 4 more cases. So when a case ends, we should say then break. Okay, and now create a new case for when monthly expenses is selected. So now let's hit save. And now this is also working. So as you can see, either use cases or if statements. It's much cleaner with cases, let's say in this case. Get it? Cases in this case? It's not funny. Okay, so let's change this one to income. And down here we will have the last one with budget review. Okay, and that's basically it. So let's test our project again. I'm just going to reset it. Okay guys, so that's basically it for this project. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. If you want to see more content like this, then please subscribe to my channel and see you next time. Bye bye.